Time for a quick commercial.
That's right, Ellie. This episode is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. Creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And they'll even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. To get started, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm today.
Thank you guys for coming to my daddy's podcast. I just want to say, well, you are the best.
Welcome back to the Lessons for Success show. I'm your host, Adam Wardlaw, a middle school science teacher and a high school football coach here in the state of South Carolina. I want to thank the listeners who hail from 17 different states here in America to our listeners outside the USA from Canada and the United Kingdom. Hopefully you've gained some valuable insight from our guests so far on the show. Remember that new episodes come out every Sunday and the show is available everywhere where podcasts can be found. Keep up with the show on social media at L4S Show or use the hashtag L4S Show. Again, that's the number 4. You can also send messages into the show by downloading the Anchor app. Send in any questions or comments related to the show so that it can be featured in future episodes of the podcast.
Daddy, who's the guest on your podcast this week?
Travis Smith is currently the athletic director at Douglas County High School in Georgia. He played collegiately at Presbyterian College before he began his coaching career. In this lesson for success, Coach Smith shares how he became inspired to coach because of the influence of mentors that he had in his upbringing. You can follow Coach Smith on Twitter at _Coach T. Smith. Enjoy.
I'm originally from Dublin, Georgia, which is around the middle Georgia area. I grew up went to West Lawrence High School, grew up playing all sports. In high school, I played basketball, football, and ran track. I went on to college at Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina. I was a 4-year starter there, a 3-year All-American. I left there and did some work in the community sector as far as with Boys and Girls Club, team, things of that nature. And then I finally got into coaching, which I had been running from for a while. Now I couldn't run from it anymore. I felt like it was my calling to coach and to work with young people. So I started my coaching career in 2009 at Langston Hughes High School, which is in Fairburn, southwest of Atlanta. I was there for 7 years. After the third game of my first year ever as a coach, I became the offensive coordinator. So we took some lumps. It was a brand new school. Took some lumps those first few years, but we got things going. We had 4 straight consecutive playoff appearances. We won 2 region championships before I left. I left Langston to go to Douglas County High School to be the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach. We kind of got that program had been stagnant. A lot of 2 and 3 win seasons. That's our first year there. We won 6. My second year we won 10 games, and last year we won 8 games. So we've got things going at Douglas County. And as of about a week ago, I just completed my first year as the athletic director at Douglas County as well. So wearing quite a few hats at Douglas County, but I love what I do. And I love being around kids and being able to combine 2 passions that I have, sports and then working with young people. So it's a great opportunity for me.
You know, Coach, you mentioned that breaking that stagnant environment when you got to Douglas County. Can you kind of go into what that looks like and what are some things that you guys were emphasizing in order to kind of break out of that cycle?
Well, we were aware of some of the struggles that Douglas County had in the past. We were in the same region as Langston Hughes. So when I was at Langston Hughes, we played against Douglas County. So we kind of had an idea of some of the things that plagued the program. You know, they always had good athletes, but they had a stigma of they would quit. You get up on them and, you know, then they kind of lay down. So that was kind of, we had to fight that mantra when we first got over it, and we where we really pushed kids to go beyond what they thought their limits were, as far as work ethic and things of that nature. And then kids began to, buy in, and the more they bought in, the more success we had. So I think for us, the main thing was getting them to realize that they could win, and understand what it took to become winners. And I think the light bulb went off at the end of our first season, and then going into our second season, kids were full go. So we've just been trying to build on that as we've gone forward.
You mentioned earlier about how you worked with the Boys and Girls Club, and then, kind of your two passions are sports and working with kids. Was there anything from that previous experience, and because I can imagine there are, that you used when you got into coaching and things like that?
Yeah, as far as building relationships with kids, learning how to do those types of things, which I've always done. Even when I was younger, I'd mentor kids and work with the DARE program, things of that nature when I was in high school. So it's something that I've always done, but it helped me learn new ways of reaching kids. Then I worked with a program called College Bound, where we prepared kids for college and post-secondary options, and helped them throughout the college application process. So when I started coaching, it allowed me to have that kind of input on helping kids get to the next level from an academic and an athletic standpoint. Coming from that background, it allowed me to take athletes and help them prepare for post-secondary options with the knowledge that I learned working with the Boys and Girls Club. So I took quite a few tips and things that I was able to do with the Boys and Girls Club, and was able to put them to work in the educational section.
That College Bound program you just mentioned, it sounds like those are some things that definitely a lot of student athletes and people in general, as they're going through the system, kind of need to know, but they're not really aware of all the things that kind of go into it. What are some of the things that specifically you're getting with those student athletes about through that College Bound program?
With just the entire application process, as far as what it takes to get into school, what should you be looking for when you decide what school you want to go to? The yearly process of things that you should work on each year in high school, from freshman to senior year, having that timeline of what you need to work on, what tests you need to take, what scores you need, what schools will your scores allow you to go to. Those types of things are things that we really focused on at the Boys and Girls Club, and then things I've been able to transition into working in the high school level as well.
Now that you're the athletic director, is that kind of something that you're going to invest more in as you kind of build your – what's that going to look like when you put it in place with your high school team?
Well, one thing we're going to start doing is we'll begin to have experts in that area, speakers come in, and we'll have meetings with parents and the kids where they sit down, and I'll have someone come in and kind of outline the whole process. It's one thing when they hear from us coaches and their counselors, but when you have someone who's kind of a professional in that area come in and kind of piggyback off some of the things you're saying, and kind of give a better, they may be able to say it a little bit different, a little bit better in a way that they can understand, that can help out a whole lot. So that's kind of where we're headed as far as the recruiting and getting to the next level as far as that process goes.
I think what you said there right at the beginning was interesting about when you kind of bring in those outside people to talk about certain topics. And then they happen to mention something that you've been telling your kids all along, and you can kind of see the looks on your kids' faces like, oh, whoa, he told us that 2 weeks ago. It's exactly. Good to have that validation. Coach, you talked about kind of the great career you had going through high school and then in college. I can only imagine that there were some challenges that kind of helped mold you into becoming such a successful college athlete, and then having success now in the professional field. Can you kind of go through kind of some of the challenges you faced as you were going through your high school and college careers, and then maybe early on in your working career?
Well, I was always a pretty good athlete, but I was undersized. Coming out of high school, I was probably 5'6", 5'7". I might have weighed 135, 140 pounds soaking wet. So I kind of always had played the underdog role. I always got kind of overlooked despite my athleticism. I kind of got overlooked because I was a smaller athlete. So I kind of used that as fuel to my fire. Always wanted to prove people wrong. I always kind of had a chip on my shoulder. So overcoming those challenges of being looked over and expectations not being very high from other people for me, kind of using those things to overcome and to push myself to surpass what other people might have thought I was able to do. And the same thing when I began coaching. I became the offensive coordinator 3 games into my first year of coaching. So there were a lot of people who didn't believe I knew what I was doing. To a certain extent, I didn't. But I used that to fuel my thirst for more knowledge and to reach out to other people to become more well versed in at my craft. And that's something that a lot of the kids we coach. We have some guys who are 3 and 4 and even some 5-star guys, but most of the kids that we coach and that we work with are going to be those underdog kids who get overlooked. So being able to use my past experiences and with my kids and explain, how to navigate the process and things of that nature is something that I really think benefits myself and as well as the kids in our program.
You kind of mentioned how you guys have players who are kind of on both ends of the spectrum. You got your underdog guys that, there's a ton of those types of people out there, and not necessarily just in football. It's it might be in a certain profession or something like that where they feel like maybe they're being doubted and stuff. But then, I think it's interesting that you've kind of got experience with kind of the opposite end of that spectrum too, with guys that seemingly have it all at their fingertips. How do you balance those two types of people in your program? It's almost easier if it's all one or the other. If you've got a group of all extremely talented people, well, gosh, you're probably going, at least on a football field, you're going to be pretty good anyway. But and then on the other end, if you got a group of underdogs, they can kind of buy in together. Has it been difficult kind of managing those two types of people in your program?
Well, not really. I think we hold those kids that are 4 and 5 stars and have all the offers. We hold them to a certain level. We kind of make examples out of them, and the kids on the lower end of the spectrum. They see us dogging and going hard on those kids who who people think have it all, and it comes easy to them. They see us going hard on them, then they realize, okay, well, if they can coach him like that, then I should be no different, So I think the key is not treating those kids any different. And if there is any different, is you go harder on those kids than you do the ones who expectations may not be as high. And I think that helps establish a level of buy-in to where you kind of make an example out of the top, the top dog. And then everybody else tends to fall in line once they see that you're willing to make an example out of those kids as well.
Well, I think it's great that you're kind of holding even the top guys to that same level. Kids especially, they'll be the first ones to call out anytime there's some sort of inequality in how people are being treated. And they, if they see a certain person being treated a certain way, it can really motivate them to kind of go the opposite way. They're like, well, he can do this and get away with this, and I can do that too. And I just think that's great, Coach, that you guys are holding everybody to that same standard. One thing that I've been trying to end a lot of these interviews on is kind of, if you had to tell the listening audience what would be a one or two-piece key to success, what would that be and why, if you wanted to elaborate on that?
Well, I think one thing is be true to you. Be true to who you are as an individual, regardless of whether you're in sports or any walk of life. Know what your standards are, and what your principles are that you live by, and don't compromise them for anything. I think that's a mistake that I made from time to time and early on in my coaching career, was that in an effort to try to please everybody and not want to say no in certain instances, I kind of lost who I was. But I was able to redirect and kind of press the reset button and really focus on the things that made me who I was. And I think that I became a better, not only a better coach, a better advocate of young people, but just a better person, and that helped me as well. The other thing is really know your why. Know why it is that you do what you do. I coach because, and like I said, I mentioned my two passions are sports and working with young people. I do what I do because there was someone that came along that gave me an opportunity, and pretty much just saved my life when I was getting overlooked, and gave me a chance at not only just education, but a chance to pursue a football career, and improve on all those different characteristics and those different life lessons that you learn from the game of football. It gave me an opportunity to use the game of football to become a better person. And I use those same, that's my why. I do it for that same reason. It's my way of paying it forward. I want to reach back and help someone else the way I had coaches help me, in the past. And I think if you understand what your why is, everything else falls in place. You understand what your why is, be true to what you are and what you stand for, and I think everything else falls in place. So those are two pieces of advice I give to not only coaches and people in athletic professions, but just people in all walks of life.
Coach, again, I thank you so much for joining me. If anybody out there is listening, wanted to get in touch with you somehow, whether it's social media or anything else you feel comfortable giving out, what would be the best way to kind of get in contact with you?
Well, you can find me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram. It's _Coach T. Smith. Again, that's at _Coach T. Smith on Twitter, on Instagram. Then if you also want to go to our Douglas County Athletics website, which is DCTigersAthletics.com. My information, as well as all our coaches' information, can be found on that website as well. Either way is fine. Twitter will probably be the easiest one. So I'm always open to building new relationships, meeting new people. So if anyone out there wants to get in contact with me, feel free to do so. And hopefully we can learn from each other.
Daddy, I'm learning so much from this podcast.
I learned a ton from Coach Smith this week about understanding the purpose behind what you are doing. Let's review this lesson for success. Coach Smith shared that if it weren't for the people who invested in him during his upbringing, he likely would not be doing what he's doing today. Coach Smith shared that being a mentor to others can benefit both people involved. People who are able to be mentored tend to benefit greatly from this guidance. It is also common for the mentors to benefit as well from these relationships because they're able to reflect on their own practices and develop their own skill and understanding. I encourage our listeners out there to not only seek mentors for their own professional or personal lives, but to also seek opportunities to become a mentor as well. Who knows, you may inspire the person you mentor to change their trajectory in life completely, and I guarantee you will benefit from being a mentor as well. Interact with the show on Twitter and Instagram at L4S Show. That's the number 4. You can mention us or you can use the hashtag L4S Show. Again, that's the number 4. Episodes will also be placed on YouTube channel Lessons for Success Show. And now you can download the Anchor app in order to send messages directly into the show. These questions and messages can be featured on future episodes. So go ahead and download the Anchor app today. All of the episodes are available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or anywhere else where podcasts can be found. So be sure to like, subscribe, and rate. Thank you for listening to Lessons for Success.
That's the end of our show. Thank you for listening.